Hello, dear viewer. Before starting this story, please subscribe and like it. Enjoy watching.
The first light of day breaks across a restless horizon, the sea turning from black to molten gold. The camera pans low over the waves, revealing a lone cog ship cutting through the mist. Its hull creaks, sails taut against the wind. This is the 12th century, and Europe's seas are as contested as any battlefield on land. Narration slips in, the voice steady but tinged with awe. In the Middle Ages, the ocean was more than a highway. It was a battlefield, a frontier, and a gamble with death. We glide past rugged coastlines where watchtowers keep silent vigil, past fishing boats that scatter like minnows at the sight of a warship's banner. These are not the vast steel leviathans of the modern world. These ships are wooden bones wrapped in cloth and rope, fragile yet deadly. Every plank, every knot of rigging carries the weight of survival. Already, you can feel the tension. In an age where storms could be deadlier than enemy blades, setting sail meant betting your life on skill, luck, and the grace of God. The camera pushes in on the dockyard of Venice, the air alive with the hammering of carpenters, the hiss of pitch being poured onto hulls. Galley builders work in furious synchronization, each ship a marriage of artistry and engineering. Long, slender hulls promise speed. Towering forecastles offer an advantage in close combat. Narration: the medieval warship was both weapon and fortress. Each curve of its keel, each or set in place, was a choice between speed and stability, between living to fight another day or sinking into eternity. We see close-ups. Hands calloused from rope burns, the black tar sealing the timbers, the sharp iron or ram designed to punch holes below the waterline. Ships are not built for comfort. They are instruments of terror. Above deck, siege weapons are hoisted aboard. Mangonels for hurling stones, ballistae for launching iron-tipped bolts, and barrels of quicklime to blind enemy crews. As the wind catches the scent of salt and pine, it's clear this is the arms race of the medieval seas. We cut to the rolling deck of a galley somewhere in the Mediterranean. The oarsmen, chained to their benches, row in unison under the lash of a boatswain's whip. Above them, the captain scans the horizon for sails, his knuckles white around the tiller. The narration grows darker. At sea, the enemy was only half the danger. Hunger, disease, and storms could claim a crew before a single arrow was loosed. We see rats darting across the deck, sailors fighting over stale bread. In the cramped quarters below deck, men lie in hammocks too close to stretch their legs, the air thick with sweat and brine. Yet there is also a strange brotherhood here. Sailors sing shanties in the night, pray together before storms, and share the spoils when fortune smiles. In these moments, you realize that medieval naval warfare was as much about endurance as it was about combat. The ship itself is both home and prison, savior and executioner. The sea churns beneath the sky bruised with storm clouds. Two fleets converge, oar-driven galleys of the Genoese and Catalans, their sails furled to keep control in tight maneuvering. The narration sharpens. A medieval sea battle was a dance of death. There were no broadside cannons yet. Victory meant closing the gap, boarding, and spilling blood on deck. The ships approached like predators, archers loosing arrows in high arcs that vanish into the haze before finding their mark. Siege engines crack and roar, sending stones crashing through enemy hulls. Grappling hooks bite into wood, drawing ships together until the clang of swords and the screams of the wounded fill the air. The camera sweeps across the chaos. Men falling into the sea, dragged down by their armor, barrels of oil ignited and rolled toward the enemy. Captains shouting over the thunder waves. By the time the battle ends, the sea is littered with splintered masts and floating bodies, a grim testament to the price of victory. A parchment map is unfurled across a captain's table, its edges curling from the damp. Inked coastlines twist like scars. Tiny ship markers are moved with deliberate care. Narration: on land, generals fought with walls and cavalry. At sea, commanders fought with wind and water itself. We see the battle plans they experienced, baiting an enemy fleet into shallow waters where larger ships will run aground, forming a crescent to trap them against a headwind, or splitting forces to attack from multiple angles in a coordinated strike. In the Mediterranean, speed was king, galleys lunged like wolves. In the north, bulkier cogs relied on high-sided defense, waiting for the perfect chance to grapple and board. We zoom in on a captain studying the sky, calculating wind shifts by the shape of the clouds. He orders sails adjusted and oars doubled. Victory in medieval naval warfare could hinge on a single gust. In this chess game of wood and water, every move risked disaster. A misjudged current, an unseen reef, or a late maneuver could doom an entire fleet before the first sword was drawn. Night, a moonless sky swallows the horizon. In the dark, small longships glide silently toward a sleeping merchant convoy. Narration lowers to a whisper. Not all battles at sea were between kings. Some were between thieves and their prey. Pirates were the wolves of the medieval ocean, swift, hungry, and merciless. The Vikings of earlier centuries left a legacy of terror, but in the high Middle Ages, the threat shifted to corsairs in the Mediterranean and marauding raiders in the Channel. We watch as grappling hooks latch onto a merchant hull. The soft creak would follow by the sudden eruption of steel and screams. Goods are plundered, crews cut down or taken for ransom. But piracy was not always rebellion. Sometimes it was business. Monarchs issued letters of marque, turning pirates into privateers who could legally plunder enemy ships in wartime. For the crew, there was little moral difference. Gold was gold, and the sea did not care whether it came from enemy fleets or defenseless traders. Sunlight blazes on a ported acre, the air thick with incense and salt. Rows of warships bristle with banners bearing the cross, their sails white against the deep blue sea. Narration swells. The Crusades did not march on land alone. They sailed on waves of ambition and blood. From the ports of Venice, Pisa, and Genoa, great fleets carried knights, siege engines, and supplies to the Holy Land. The logistics were staggering. Food for months, water stored in massive barrels, weapons stacked in orderly rows. Yet these fleets were not just transport. They were war machines in their own right. Muslim fleets from Egypt and the Levant fought to intercept them, using swift galleys to strike supply lines. We see the chaos of a convoy ambushed mid-voyage, ships scattering, archers loosing arrows from swaying decks, and knights in armor fighting on slippery planks. For the Crusaders, control of the sea was the difference between victory and starvation. Without their fleets, castles would fall, and holy wars would end before they began. The water is calm, the night quiet. Then, on the horizon, a faint orange glow. Narration tightens. In the dark, the most feared weapon approached without a sound until it was too late. Fire ships were suicide weapons of the medieval seas. Old hulks packed with tar, pitch, oil, and sometimes even gunpowder, set light and sent drifting into enemy formations. We watch through the eyes of a terrified sailor as a flaming silhouette grows, crackling and hissing, the wind pushing it toward his ship. Orders are shouted. Cut the anchor lines. Row for your lives. But the current pulls it closer. The impact is a blooming inferno, fire racing across decks, licking at the sails, forcing men to leap into the sea. Fire was merciless. It destroyed ship's cargo and morale in equal measure. To see a comrade burn was to face the nightmare of every sailor, a death neither by sword nor by wave, but by the hungry mouth of flame. We open on the port city of Constantinople, 1453. The Ottoman fleet glides into the Golden Horn, their mass of forest of spears. Narration. Some cities were fortresses of stone. Others were fortresses of water. Medieval sieges often played out on both land and sea. Blockading a harbor could choke a city into surrender as effectively as any battering ram. We see defenders atop seawalls, hurling stones and boiling oil onto ships attempting to breach chains stretched across the harbor mouth. In the distance, siege towers float on barges, creeping toward the walls like monstrous insects. Every cannon shot, every flaming arrow, is a duel between the stubbornness of stone and the relentlessness of the tide. When the harbor falls, the city follows, and when the city falls, kingdoms change hands. The camera drifts over a ship graveyard at low tide. Barnacle-encrusted ribs jut from the sand like the bones of long-dead leviathans. Waves lap softly, a stark contrast to the chaos these waters once knew. Narration softens, tinged with reverence. The age of oars and sail was never quiet. It was a century-spanning duel between man, nature, and ambition. By the late 15th century, the world was shifting. Gunpowder thunder replaced the twang of bowstrings. Tall-sided cares began to overshadow the lean-war galleys of old. But the lessons of medieval naval warfare, discipline, cunning, and the ruthless understanding that the sea is both battlefield and executioner, remained etched into the minds of commanders. We fade through a montage. Genoese galleys surging through the Mediterranean, Viking longships slicing cold northern waters, a burning fire ship drifting like a phantom toward its prey, the vast fleets of the Crusades vanishing into a sunlit horizon. Narration concludes. Wood rots, sails fade, and steel rusts, but a legacy of these battles lives on, in every flag raised at sea, and in every sailor who dares to take the ocean's gamble. The camera pulls back, rising above the coastline until the ships below are specks on a silver sheet of water. The waves go on forever, fade to black.